Now we've done protein, let's talk about carbohydrate requirements. So with carbohydrates, they've been really misunderstood and vilified, particularly in the 2000s, as low carbs became very popular, despite they are the body's primary source of fuel. And one of the arguments that people make is there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. Uh, just because it's not essential doesn't mean it's not beneficial. There's no such thing as an essential toilet, for example, but they've made our lives infinitely better. So with carbohydrates, we need them for a number of reasons, but they still play a crucial role in supporting energy needs, particularly for individuals who are really active. And if we can understand how to use them better, we're going to get better health and performance outcomes for our clients. So, carbs, preferred energy source of the body, especially during high intensity exercise and physical activity. Most personal trainers do weight training with their clients. Carbohydrates are the fuel for that. And the body will break down the carbs into glucose, which is used to generate adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy currency of all cells in the body. And how we do it is we store them in the muscles and liver, which serves as ready available fuel source. We have about 400 grams of muscle, 100 grams in liver, which means it's really easy and immediate to access that to actually perform in exercise. And it's critical for anything that has sustained performance. There's a reason why the vast majority of endurance athletes have carbohydrate gels. There's a reason why the vast majority of physique athletes emphasize carbohydrates in their diet as one of the main things they do to gain weight in training phases, because they're trying to maximize muscle glycogen and their workout performance. Now, carbs for performance, we can use fats and proteins. Carbs are just simply much more efficient. You can become fat adapted. It takes about 12 to 18 months generally on the person to get the same benefits as just eating carbohydrates. So if you want to, you can. But I can't really create a really good argument for most people to do it unless they absolutely can't tolerate carbohydrates or hate them. They just need to be aware that there is an adaptation time that it takes. So we want carbohydrates for our athletes and our clients, both pre and post exercise, for fuel and recovery. It can enhance performance, delay fatigue, and speed up recovery. And there's even research now that simply having a carbohydrate mouthwash and spitting it out, so putting some glucose-rich carbohydrate in your mouth, swirling around and spitting it out in athletic performance, will improve performance just like that you drank it. So they're pretty cool. So again, just to touch on this, they're not technically essential, but they are really important, okay? So we don't have essential amino acids and essential fatty acids, we basically die. That's not ideal. The no carbohydrates will do that, but it doesn't mean that skipping them is going to help. And for most people who skip carbohydrates totally, we find that we get hidden health issues crop up over time, which relate to the lack of carbohydrates in the diet, but quite often aren't directly correlated. So how do we determine carb requirements? If someone's general population and generally a little bit sedentary or exercises less, they just need moderate amount of carbohydrates. They can, following a zone diet, like a 30-40-30 diet, 30% protein, 30% carbs, 30% fats, can actually be really useful for that population of people. They don't need everything all the time, a whole bunch of carbohydrates, versus intense athletes will often eat up to 10 grams per kilo body weight, which is kind of crazy, but they do. Now, for more active individuals, we got anyone who exercises over 3 times a week. We see that generally 3 to 5 grams per kilogram body weight is going to be pretty active. Or if someone's doing more endurance-based activity, 6 to 10 grams per kilo body weight, depending on duration and intensity of the exercise. So it can get quite high. Now, we talked about this in the calorie calculations, that if someone is doing high-level endurance activities, we will actually calculate and account for their exercise activity thermogenesis. So if they run for 3 hours in a day, we will actually put that into their calorie allotment to promote recovery from that. And generally, we will fill that gap with carbohydrates. So for a general population client or most weightlifting individuals, like weight resistance training, I wouldn't worry about going to these high things or calculating exercise activity thermogenesis. But with elite endurance athletes, it's something that we certainly consider. Now, with carbs, timing is useful here. So whereas protein is really based around consistency, carbohydrates can be used for a number of different things in timing to get optimal outcomes. So pre-workout and high glycemic index, so sugary carbohydrates, white bread, rice, sports drink, really quick, readily available fuel for the workout. Really, really good to use in that situation there. It will lead to a faster increase in blood glucose and muscle glycogen stores, but that's exactly what we want in that. For a health-orientated client, we probably don't need them to be doing that to get readily available glucose because they've got enough glucose stored to actually do the workout. So we want to avoid these high glycemic index foods the majority of the time with our general population clients who are a little bit more sedentary, but people who are training can absolutely benefit from them and they will be useful. And then with carbs, we want them to be about 30 to 60 minutes before exercise, simply because eating right before you train sucks and it can make you throw up. So we definitely don't want to have gastrointestinal distress before a heavy workout session. Now, post carbs, 30 minutes to 2 hours. So again, the recovery window is really long. Will maximize glycogen synthesis and support recovery. So if someone can't eat immediately post training, cool, that's okay. We can build it up over time, give them an hour or so, they eat a meal and they're back on track. No problems at all. A lot of people freak out about eating immediately. Our body needs to shift from a sympathetic to a parasympathetic state to actually utilize that. So for most people, taking a little bit more of a break will mean they get better digestion and better absorption of the nutrients that they're eating. Now, one thing we can also do is we can bias carbohydrates for hunger management. So for a lot of people, they struggle with evening hunger. So what I do in this situation is I bias the majority of their carbohydrate intake towards the evening. Keep them satisfied at night, reducing chances of overeating or snacking. I personally do this. I find if I'm doing like a diet and I'm struggling with hunger, again, post-workout I'll have some carbohydrates, but I'll push them as far back as I can throughout the day and the overall caloric load of my diet, because it helps me deal with the time of day that I struggle with the most. There's no, we all know by now that carbs at night doesn't lead to fat gain. It's overall caloric intake. So there may be some scale gain the first time that you start doing that, and that's simply because of glycogen and water storage and food volume. But that disappears over after a couple of days and starts to even itself out, and people see the results. On the flip side, some people can be really hungry in the morning, and you can bias it towards the morning. There's nothing wrong with that. It's looking at biasing people's nutrient intake to the times that they want to eat. So how do we put them in the plan? We set the protein first. This is our general rule of thumb. Set the protein first, 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo body weight. Fats, so generally 1 gram per kilo body weight is really good, down to half a gram per kilogram body weight for females and to 0.3 for males. But we'll talk about that in the next module. And then fill in the rest with carbohydrates. Simple as that. The reason we do it this way is because there's essential amino acids and essential fatty acids. And this ensures that we hit protein and fat targets, and then carbohydrates can take up the rest of the diet for that particular person. If you want to change the diet, and we'll go over this more in nutritional periodization, we'll be talking about reducing either carbohydrates or fat as a way to create a caloric deficit for the person. And then when we're looking at increasing their calories in the caloric surplus, we'll probably do it through carbohydrates generally, and then potentially add in some fats. Proteins will go up quite slowly because their weight should be going up quite slowly anyway. And guys, that's how we calculate carbs, and that's how we include them in the diet plan.